Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to crack the code on Prince2 certification. We're looking at a critical principle that literally separates failing projects from the highly successful ones. If you've been around the project management block for any amount of time, you know it's a complex beast, right? But managing strictly by the Prince2 methodology, well, that requires a very specific mindset.
So, here's a fascinating question for you. Why on earth do project teams keep repeating the exact same mistakes? It's crazy, right? Sure, projects are inherently unique and challenging, which makes them prime breeding grounds for errors. But today, we're going to zoom right in on specific exam strategy and practical application so we can ensure your team stops repeating these predictable slip-ups and starts truly learning.
All right, here's our roadmap for This Explainer. First up, the 7 core principles. Second, a deep dive into learn from experience. Third, lessons identified versus lessons learned. Fourth, a real-world scenario with Lou's shopping. And finally, acing the Prince2 exams. Let's get into it. Starting off with Section 1, the 7 core principles, which is the mandatory framework of good practice.
Now, think of these 7 core principles as pieces of a giant puzzle. What you really need to remember here is that these principles are the absolute guiding obligations. They determine whether a project is genuinely being managed using Prince2. It's basically a package deal. Unless all 7 of these principles are applied, there's no way you can claim it's a Prince2 project.
As you can see, these principles cover the whole shebang, ranging from ensuring continued business justification all the way to managing by exception and tailoring to suit the project. But for the rest of this explainer, we are going to focus our attention entirely on principle number 2, learn from experience.
All right, Section 2. Let's do a deep dive into learn from experience and how we go about actively seeking and implementing improvements.
Okay, you'll want to pay close attention to the exact wording of this definition, especially for your exam prep. It explicitly states that a Prince2 project team actively seeks, records, and implements improvements. Notice that. It's an active posture, not a passive one. You're pulling from both prior projects and the current life of the project. You don't just wait around for a mistake to happen and act surprised, you actively hunt for the lessons.
And that's because this learning, it isn't just a one-time event. It's a step-by-step continuous life cycle. When you're first starting up, you absolutely must review previous or similar projects to see if any lessons can be applied. Then, as the project is progressing, your team needs to continuously share insights. And finally, during the closing phase, you've got to pass on those lessons for future use. It's this continuous, never-ending loop of improvement.
Moving on to Section 3, lessons identified versus lessons learned. This is a crucial distinction.
Now, this right here is a massive, salient point that will absolutely 100% come up during your exams. Major exam alert. A lesson is only identified if it just sits there, unactioned, in some dusty logbook or buried in a spreadsheet somewhere. It only earns the official title of a lesson learned when it is actively implemented to improve the current project or future ones. Simply put, if you haven't changed a behavior, a process, or a standard, you haven't actually learned the lesson. You've merely identified it.
Let's make this concrete in Section 4. We'll look at a real-world scenario with the Louis shopping project, putting theory into practice.
So in this scenario, the Louis shopping project team faced a pretty massive setback. What happened was an outdated floor plan was mistakenly shared with the team handling the electric power distribution system. Because they were working off the wrong blueprints, it caused a full week of expensive rework and some severe project delays. I mean, we've all felt the pain of a simple communication error snowballing into a massive headache, right? But hey, here is exactly where the Prince2 methodology kicks in and saves the day. Instead of just identifying the error, grumbling about it, and writing, use correct floor plans in that dusty logbook we talked about, the project manager took actual action. They gathered the relevant team members to investigate exactly how those incorrect drawings were shared in the first place. Then, they implemented concrete changes to their document control process to ensure this specific issue was never repeated. That right there, that is the perfect transition from a lesson identified to a lesson truly learned. Which brings us to Section 5, acing the Prince2 exams. Let's get into some tactical test knowledge. I want you to consider this exact syllabus sample question. Let's say you have a contracted project manager working for an NGO. They realize their new project has a really short timescale.
Now, based on their experience from a completely previous project with a different NGO, they recommend starting option analysis earlier, right in the initiation stage, just to save time. The exam asks, is this an appropriate application of the learn from experience principle? Well, the correct exam rationale is, yes, absolutely it is. The syllabus dictates that when starting a project, previous or similar projects must be reviewed. And here's the real kicker for the exam. This applies even as the project was delivered by people or organizations entirely external to your current business. It is especially critical if your current project is a quote-unquote first for your team. You're fully expected to bring in and apply those external lessons.
Okay, another massive exam tip. Do not forget the people factor. The syllabus recognizes that a ton of valuable knowledge is hidden right in your ecosystem, things that just don't fit nicely into a filing cabinet. We're talking about behaviors, culture, and relationships. Those are notoriously difficult to write down in a traditional lessons log, so the exam wants you to know that these are best learned and shared collaboratively through social learning. You really have to create an environment that naturally encourages this kind of organic knowledge sharing. Also, please keep this quote in your back pocket. It is important to learn from both mistakes and successes to continuously improve and innovate. You know, it's just human nature to only dissect our disasters, like that Louis shopping floor plan, but the exam will definitely test if you know to dissect your perfect wins, too. If a project stage goes flawlessly, you need to analyze exactly why it went perfectly so you can replicate that success next time.
So as we wrap up this explainer, the crucial point to leave you with today is a bit of a challenge for your own daily practice. Ask yourself right now, what undocumented lessons are currently hiding within your own project ecosystem? Are you sitting on valuable data that's just, unidentified? And more importantly, what specific steps are you going to take tomorrow to move those insights from just unidentified to truly learned? Keep that actively in mind as you study, and you are going to do incredibly well in your exams.